Hey everybody, welcome to Mothers Unfiltered, where we go live and we're not expecting it. This episode actually, for first off, let me say thank you for even tuning in. But this episode, we was kind of like doing it off of the whim. I wanted to just put out there a lot of events I believe will be happening and occurring this week because of inauguration. A lot of protests, a lot of people. So just stay safe in general. But with that being said, and we'll touch basis on why we had this platform the way we're doing now. Let me pass it over to Ty.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Remember just to subscribe, like, share, comment. I don't really want to take up too much time and be too animated and colorful because we're going to be talking about some heavy stuff today. So, Kia, go do your thing, girl.
Well, one of the topics that I wanted to talk about, I want to talk about tomorrow the remembrance, the celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which is celebrated tomorrow. Some people will have the day off. If you can take that day off, take that day off. But I wanted to touch base just in general about the different current events that are going on. Everything is kind of coinciding with each other in reference to how I'm trying to formulate the path where we're taking in reference to the episodes, because it's all about preparation at the end of the day. And I'm going to keep saying that. I'm going to beat it into the wall. Preparation. But we're talking about current events, what's happening, because on Wednesday, the 20th, will be the big day of inauguration. They shut DC down. They're doing all types of prepping from all over the United States, if I'm not mistaken, right, Ty?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They've activated the National Guard in all 50 states. So I just want everybody just to stay safe. But I also brought Cash in because I think you have some good commentary as well. So thank you, Cash, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And just having your we love you.
We love Cash.
But just in case you didn't know, Martin Luther King Jr. is known for his contributions to the American Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s. His most famous work was I Have a Dream, speech was delivered in 1963, in which he spoke on his dream in the United States that in reference to segregation and racism and these things. But a lot of people, and even conservatives, will jump in and talk about how Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a symbol of hope, a symbol of freedom, just all the things that, we can just all envision. But they leave out the rest of his speech. The I Have a Dream speech didn't just talk about unity, excuse me. It wasn't just talking about, hey, we're all going to sing Kumbaya. They also talked about minimum wage. It also talked about being and having equal rights for job opportunities and better housing. And these are socialistic ideas, especially if these things were actually talked about right now, present day. They weren't so much, I guess, I wasn't alive then, very taboo. We only hear that speech when we're in school. We're only hearing that speech about I Have a Dream, going to the mountaintop and those things. And I wanted to ask you, Cash, do you feel that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a socialist?
I think he was pretty much a self-described democratic socialist. So, I think he definitely did believe in that. He believed that capitalism was one of the tent poles of white supremacy. So, he definitely wasn't a capitalist. And that's one of the things people have to understand. Capitalism, socialism, communism, these are economic theories. These are not, per se political. People take those terms and use them to be, these all-inclusive terms when, no, really they're just talking about the economic makeup of the country. Is there more private ownership? Is there more, government ownership? And that's really all that means. It's not necessarily good or bad, inherently.
So I remember hearing just recently when they buried, was it Cummings? I'm so bad with names. I hate the fact that I'm so bad with names. But when they recently had this big memorial about him, there was a dear friend of his that got up on this podium to speak. He had to be at least 98, bless his heart. And he was like, this will continue to go on the way we're living until we get rid of plantation capitalism. And I spoke about that one time. And there's a difference between capitalism and plantation capitalism. Are you able to elaborate a little bit about that, Cash?
As far as capitalism versus
plantation capitalism.
Plantation capitalism.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not familiar with the particular quote, and I know Elijah Cummings did pass away a few months ago, but I wasn't aware of the particular conversation that you were referring to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I know from my intake on it was just basically just getting free labor off the backs of us, and of course, when you think of capitalism, you're thinking like, hey, you can work, and you can build from the ground up, and you'll be your own boss, and everybody's living on the leg of the lamb, and everybody's doing what they got to do. But when you're talking about, well, wait a second, who's the one who's winning and who's losing? When we are beating our brothers and sisters down, and they're not making minimum wage standards, and they're living below poverty lines. That's what I guess he was referring to, plantation capitalism. I just wanted to know, do you think that Martin Luther King's legacy is being lived out today? Do you think that this is what he was envisioning? I mean, we have progressed since the time of 1963. Do you feel that we are going in that right direction? But it's a slow, staggering pace.
Yeah, I think there's definitely in certain areas has been progress.
Yeah.
The level of overt racism and overt violence there was in America in the 1960s. You don't see that anymore, or at least as much. But also, it's not necessary. So, and the reason that it's not necessary is if you think of those things as being tools for economic gain, which, that's what I believe, that racism, slavery, all of these different things are tools for economic gain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that they sailed all the way to Africa and sailed all the way across to America, risking life and limb just because they didn't like Black people. It was an economic invention, venture, and it still very much is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that everything that they do pretty much is from that standpoint, and just not really like a I don't like you sort of thing. So when you talk about progress on that level, since we haven't really had the economic progress, then we really haven't, if the economics is the root of the racism, then we really haven't progressed on that front really at all, or tackled that. And that really needs to be done.
So I have to hear your opinion too, Ty and Cash. You'll hear mine. So on the 20th, bringing it back to more current events, on the 20th of this month, we will have Biden sworn in, hopefully, as the newest president. Do you feel, you guys, that it's going to be a big change for us? I mean, we still have so many battles that we're still dealing with police brutality, and just, I know he mentioned something about wanting to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. A lot of people in uproar because they're like, hey, we got COVID that's just happening. We're losing our jobs. And now you want to do this? I can't afford, you know what I'm saying, to pay my 5 coworkers and my staff this amount of money. And then I got to do the benefits for healthcare and all this stuff. This is what I'm talking about, people. That's why we didn't want Biden in the office, because on one end you say, hey, I have crazy Trump, right? But then on the other end, Biden's I'm about to lose my business. Like, really, I'm about to lose my business. As soon as he says it's mandatory, $15 flat, I mean, I can't do this. What do you think? Where do you see our economy headed? That's the scary picture, because there are going to be people that suffer and then they can't afford it.
There's a lot of people that are suffering now. I think that what's been going on, even though we know there's been racism and poverty, but everything that happened at the Capitol really brought light and shed light to the situation where it couldn't be swept under the rug anymore. I think that it gives us an opportunity to really be able to brainstorm and figure out different ways of how we're going to attempt to make this work. I mean, look at the economy right now. Look at where we're at. People can't afford to pay their employees. They're taking out all these loans. But you have to remember, you take out one of these loans, you still have to pay that loan back. You still have to pay it back with interest. So where does it leave you then? I think we have a ways to go. I don't know if it's going to get better and what it's really going to look like under the Biden administration. But again, I think that we can't hide things as much as we used to anymore. And I think that because Trump administration came in and just created chaos, it started to open a lot of our eyes.
Okay.
And some of us, including myself, started to become more educated over whose role is what do they do, what do they stand for. So now I know who I want to look into, who I want to vote for moving forward.
So here's the thing. So you just made a statement, about COVID and about you have to repay these loans back. But then once again, the scenario is this is where the whole preparation and what's going down the pipeline, because when we talk about preparation, we're talking about, oh my God, how to protect yourself in civil unrest and this and this. But guess what? Civil unrest comes from people being upset, people being tired. And now you have a group of people who are hurting. They're literally losing their businesses. This is their livelihood. They had Wanda's hair beauty salon for whatever. And then now all of a sudden you don't have it anymore. I mean, how am I feeding my children? What I'm going to do? They're feeling hopeless. And when there's no hope, that's when people react. How do we prepare, Cash? Do you think, how do we prepare financially? Because you've got all these things now coming in. And us, we're already at the bottom of the totem pole. How do you think we prepare financially?
It's very tough. Black entrepreneurship, Black business has never been great in America. It's hard to do capitalism without capital. So, we've always been behind the 8 ball. And even with the COVID right now, I believe at this point we've lost 50% of all Black businesses, period, just wiped off the table, don't know if they're ever going to come back. And it looks like a lot more are going to be lost as well. We, just don't have the sort of reserves and everything to really, weather a long storm. And so I think, in doing the calculus or what it is that you do or how you move forward at this time is a little bit of what we always should be doing and always been called to do is, examining the landscape, seeing what sort of careers and jobs are in demand, and now you say, because like I said, that's something that's always supposed to be done anyway, right? But now you're taking politics and COVID and things like that into account. And, at the same time, COVID has removed a lot of jobs. There's a lot of things that are booming because of COVID.
Yeah,
so,
true.
How do I pivot and, with capitalism and, America is uber capitalism, like, and especially when it comes to Black people, as you can see, imagine 50% of white businesses being wiped out. Like that's the end of America almost,
That sounds
they
scary.
hold all the wealth. But that doesn't even make the front page headline with Black people. The responsiveness to our suffering is just none. So you end up in that sort of position where you really have to pay attention and be mindful and be quick and be nimble and be swift, and economically, if winds are changing and blowing one way, then you have to be able to really adjust quickly.
Start spending money on items that you don't need, start penny pinching, start gradually living beneath whatever your household intake is, that's honestly what I would do. And then even like to address more businesses, the different types of businesses that are coming in. It's true. If you look at the entertainment business, the movie business, what I'm really like indulging in now, have these independent directors and writers coming out and doing their short films and stuff like that, instead of relying on the big movie companies to hire them and put them out in the forefront. They've been making a way for themselves. You have more people that are doing consultant businesses, you know, coming up with marketing for people, advertisement for people, doing web design, logos, because you have to be able to adjust.
So basically being more creative is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's all about innovation. And you, like, for me, it's really looking at what's going on and am I able to see the need 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 years down the line? So this might be cut out. Are we going to continue to live in a world where we don't have a lot of contact with one another the way we used to? So you got to figure out, again, like, you know, the school programming, where it's normally face-to-face school program, and now you're doing it virtual. So how do you make those look? So again, people who know that world can say, okay, well, now I know this needs to be adapted. Let's do more virtual girls, boys, you know, feel good, evidence-based programs. This, again, to me, this has like given us a way to be able to move forward. You don't have to put Blacks in the forefront. You know what? Let us move in silence. While everybody else is out there, let us do what we're doing. We are doing it. We may not see it the way we see everything else, but it's happening. Don't sleep on us.
So, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because it kind of leads us into the segue. I know when I first started, for the ones that are just joining now, the title is "What's the 411?" because there's a lot of stuff going on and so much stuff to talk about. And I wanted to play it really soft, just because this week is going to be a big week. So we don't know which direction we're taking everything to. But when you mentioned being creative and let us move in silence, Ty, it's interesting because I heard a couple of people say that they want to start buying farmland and let's grow our own vegetables and let's do what we got to do. But speaking of farmland, Bill Gates, who definitely believes in population control, just bought, let me read it, 242,000 worth of acres of farmland. And that's amazing. He is the #1 owner of farmland in America. Nobody knows what he's going to be doing with this farmland, what his plans are, but he's somebody who's definitely has been a big advocate of population control. He talks about it on his TED Talks. He's actually, you want to say he kind of predicted the whole pandemic. He never called it a spade, but he did put out on TED Talks that, you know, there's going to be something big that's coming, and it's coming in a year or so, and shit, we're here now. But with that being said, I had a conversation earlier with Cash about the whole population control, and you was telling me that your perspective is a little bit different. If you can share your perspective on this, because I find this very intriguing. Because I think Bill Gates is just trying to wipe out I think he's an evil man. He's trying to wipe out all Black people. I think it's crazy.
So I'll just speak, I guess, specifically about the population control thing. My thing with that was, I guess most people think about population control and the need for population control because, you know, the earth can't sustain a certain amount of people. You know, it's just too many people and the earth can't feed them. You know, there's no room to have them. And I don't think we're, you know, anywhere near that sort of situation, you know, whatsoever. If we wanted to, you know, I think we could, you know, easily feed every, you know, man, woman, and child, you know, on the planet. Now, the idea of population control where, okay, in, you know, this country or that country, you know, I want, you know, only a certain amount of people. I want to make sure that the population is growing at a controllable rate, maybe more for political reasons and, power reasons. Being able to more easily, manage a certain amount of people versus, oh, if it gets to be too many people, we're going to starve to death.
I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that he has talked about. He's talked about the vaccinations. He's talked about how he feels that the vaccinations should be given to Africans first. I mean, why Africans first? You're American living here in America. Why should they be given first? I mean, the things that he says is like some type of maniac man that, in a comic book story that we're reading. He just does a lot of things that make you just question, like, what is your alternative motive? I mean, he's talked about how the earth needs to be cleansed. We're growing at a crazy rate. You could talk about the food shortage. Look at the food shortage, guys. It's here. It's happening. I know we were talking about earlier, as much as we eat chicken, they can't even produce chickens just as fast. They're pumping it with all types of, chemicals and different things just to get the animals to produce quicker. I mean, this man, I don't know, in my personal opinion, how do you feel about Bill Gates, the evil professor? What's that shit?
I don't want to make him out to be. I think people make him out to be a bit of a bogeyman, though. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of that is a little bit more conspiracy theory in my feeling. I mean, in all honesty, here's something I was looking up on land ownership in America, right? Mm-hmm. So white people, they are 96% of the owners of all privately held land in America. Rural land, right? Farming land. 98% of all the acres.
Cash. Hold on 1 second. Wait, come through. Wait.
What percentage of that 90? You said 96%?
96.
What percentage of that 96% of land that they own is land that they actually stole from other people?
I mean, I guess
that's a good point.
You can say 100% of it.
If you come over so does that count? Good question, Ty. Go ahead, Cash.
Especially that's land in America, so I don't know if there's any legitimate land that was gotten in America by European people. But I guess the point being is that I'm all when people talk about like what's going to happen and this person is doing this for this reason. I think when we go and we look at the data and stuff, we realize these people already have it. Like whatever it is that you're thinking that they're trying to do, or if they have a monopoly on all the farmland, all the land, period. They, whether it's one white man holding a lot of it, or there's 100 white men holding it. There's still most of their.
I had to interject, and that's why I love the platform that we have, because we have this a regular conversation. And the question that just came to me while you were talking is: so right now you just said that they hold most of the land, rural land in America. So then you have people like Boyce Watkins. Yes, I'm giving you a shout out, and different individuals who have the same ideologies of him, saying, you know what, we gotta pull up ourselves by these bootstraps and do for ourselves. Grow your own fruit, grow your own land. Well, when you have a friend that grows their own fruit in their own land, they're not having acres of these things. I remember traveling and I went over, to other in the islands, and they get taxed. They can't even eat their own food. That shit ends up getting sent to America. And if they get caught eating their own food, they're going to get billed and locked up. All types. Puerto Rico goes through it. The Caribbean goes through it. Jamaica goes through it. They can't eat their own food. So as much as you hear, I guess the Black leaders saying, hey, we gotta, do for ourselves. Yeah, it's different when you have your own little farm in the back, so you could just kind of take care of your own little family. But acres, do you ever think we'll be able to do this whole thing where we're not, because as soon as you try to take 2 steps, they find some type of taxation or something to pull it away from us. or put some type of law and stigma like, hey, you got to grow these soybeans. I don't want to grow your soybeans. What the fuck is that soybean you're giving me? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's always an extra step for us. And then when you have these people like Boyce Watkins come out, they never talk about that. You'll have people playing it like, yeah, you heard what he said? He said you need to grow your own. I mean, but have you traveled? Do you see that these people can't even eat their own freaking produce? You know, we ship it out to them. Like, how do you think that all plays?
I mean, when you're talking about a group that owns and controls everything, what can you really do up against that? And the idea that okay, you can just pool together, say, okay, we're going to take 10,000 black people and we're going to pool together $10 a piece, and we're going to go start buying land, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, to buy land, someone has to sell land. Okay. So imagine you want to go buy some of the land that Bill Gates just bought. Is Bill Gates selling you his land?
No.
Right.
I mean,
and if they already own 97% of all the land, who are you going to buy the land?
But there are cheap places. I've seen different groups and stuff where they found cheap land. I don't know, in Michigan somewhere or whatever, or Detroit. Those little areas. I mean, small little acres. Some people are trying to do a little community or whatever. But my thing is, even if you have those pockets of black communities growing their own and they're having their own stuff, and since we're in America, don't you think they will still be infiltrated? I mean, my end goal is to somehow end up in Africa somewhere. That's where I want to retire, barefoot, walking the lands, singing the native song. Teach me the way. That's what I want to do. But I'm thinking, like, since they already own the majority of America, the transition for us to be so self-sufficient is a little bit harder than somebody else. Wouldn't you agree?
Right.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. When you're not, used to, providing for yourself and everything like that. I mean, even if we did have, all of that farmland or whatever, I don't know. I mean, it's over 40 million black people in America. I don't think we're going backwards to, where everybody is just, kind of living on subsistence farming. I don't think we're, going to that at all. So I don't see that as a, any sort of strategy for anything. Now look, is it good to have that, to be able to have some land to do farming and these things? Yeah, absolutely. And just like any group of people, say white people, for instance, they have, their group has, land in urban areas, rural areas. They have farmland, they get their food from farms. Some of it's processed, some of it's this, some of it's that, and our group should sort of be represented as well that way.
You know what?
Go ahead,
I'm sorry. What gets me is it's 2021 and we're sitting on a podcast talking about how we can move forward with our come up and stay on the come up when we know and they know for a fact that they have what belongs to us. That's what strikes me as like, the land you have is ours. Why do I have to sit back and reconstruct how to get different land and keep it without you tapping into that too?
But that's, and then we're going to talk about that in a few. That's that privilege. That's off. But that's privilege. That's privilege. Go ahead, Cash.
No, I was just going to say, the question that you posed, Ties, is a very valid question, and in a lot of ways, that is the question. And what we don't have enough of happening, in the Black community, even with Kia, when she mentioned, hey, my perfect is, to end up back in Africa, on the beach, right, walking on the sand. And I don't think we spend enough time, especially as a group, Black people as a group, on what our perfect is, right? If we had it our way, if we had a genie, say 200, 300 years from now, what would, for our group, these 40 something million people in America, what would life look like for for our children, way down the line. What would be our vision, right? Never mind, how easy it would be or plausible or anything like that. Just to have the imagination or whatever to sit down and ponder that out and say, I would want for my great, 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 great grandchildren, I would want them to live in this sort of world.
I would want them to live in a world where they could go to a hospital and I don't have to worry about them dying because of their color and not being given the proper attention and medication and care and follow up that they are deserved. I want my people to grow up in a world where they have factual education, not whitewashed education.
But here's the kicker, and I know when you mentioned that, Cash, what does the perfect look like? And we as a people need to get that answer together and be consistent and clear on that. But I think it's so hard to have that of what our perfect looks like if we are dealing with so many other things. I always say, my mom would always say, you got to fix your issues. You got to deal with your issues. Adult, deal with your issues, deal with your issues. But as an adult, you have all types of issues. Maybe you're a smoker. Maybe you're not a smoker. Maybe you just went out through a divorce. Maybe you're trying to get into a relationship. Self-esteem issues. Maybe this, maybe that. You got so much layers of crap that you're dealing with. Then you got all this other nonsense outside. You know what I'm saying? And now you're asking us what our perfect looks like. How the hell can I think about my perfect? And I got all these other things. Now, of course, we could take the layers back and, let's get a counselor and, let's have that kumbaya session. But at the same time, I'm hungry. Like, I ain't listening to about no help and this and this. I need to eat. Like,
well, ultimately, you have to be able to you have to be able to plan, short term and long term.
Yeah.
Any successful business, country, institution, whatever, is able to do that. They're able to look and decide what their immediate priorities are, and meet those, and then also still make time to make out a long-term vision and long-term plans and long-term goals. And we have to do the same thing personally in our lives, as individuals, and then also as groups. It has to be done, and it's difficult, especially the more difficult your life is, the lower you tend to be on the socioeconomic ladder. The tougher it is to think about 10 years from now, because the immediacy of now is more present. Hunger is more present. Violence is more present. Health issues is more present. Those things you can't begin to focus on those other things unless you focus on that. So it's no wonder, it's no coincidence that we haven't been able to do this, but it has to be done. Also, since we've been living in this country as basically, for the lack of a better word, sort of the children of the country, we've not really been allowed or required, as far as setting any sort of course or destiny, or we don't we going along for the ride. We're not making up where America is going in 50 years or whatever. There's city planners right now who are mapping out 50 years from now how the city of Los Angeles is going to be laid out, what freeways are going to go, what exits they're going to have, and we have nothing to do with any of that.
Wow. Well, and here's something. Let's talk about these current events. What's going on? Let's get pumping. A new movie just came out for the audience out there. I have not seen it. I cannot wait to see it. It's called American Skin. This movie, and you can watch the trailer for free and put it on YouTube if you like to watch it. But basically, the movie is about an actual veteran that served his country. And, he's back home and he happens to run into the police, running with the police. And his son is with him. And his son ends up getting hurt because, the whole thing, hey, I told you not to move, freeze. You know how that whole thing goes. And they try to sweep the whole issue under the rug. The trailer is very, very divisive. And what I mean by divisive, basically, he's tired of this whole, the police gets off, the prosecutor's in bed with the judge and the people and whatever. And they say, hey, the cop will walk for free. So what he decides to do is get a crew from his community and overthrow the police department. So they're shooting up the police department, they bombing, they're just taking hostages and everything. And there's a scene where he's questioning the police officer who did the shooting. And he's like, how would you like if it happened to you? Are you afraid now? How about you don't move? Just kind of making him feel. But a lot of people are like, they don't want to play the movie. Of course, now because of COVID, movies are kind of, hit and miss. But it's streaming now. But a lot of people are saying it should be removed because this movie can be very, very divisive. If you see a whole group of Black people just overthrowing a police department, demanding answers and wanting different changes within the system. Do you think, Cash, and I know you've seen the trailer, that this movie should play? Or do you think it's going to be a little divisive or kind of get everybody in an uproar again? Because sometimes these movies can make you very, very upset. You see a little girl walking down the street and then all of a sudden some pickup truck come pick her up. You be outside like, I see another mother. You know what I'm saying? These movies can get to your emotions. How do you feel about this one here?
I think it's good. I believe it's Nate Parker again.
Yes.
Doing this one. He also did the Nat Turner Birth of a Nation film. I think both of those films kind of call into question Blacks, right to defend ourselves and pursue because honestly, no one can give you freedom. If someone can give you freedom, they can take that freedom, and that's not freedom. So
the idea, one more time for the people in the back. I think for the people in the back, they never hear.
No one can give you freedom. If someone can give you freedom, that means they can take that freedom. That freedom basically is now contingent. And at the time that you're not doing something the way they like, or they decide otherwise, then they can take that freedom from you. True freedom is, when you can chart your own course, your own destiny. You can choose how you want to pursue things, what you want to pursue. Violence as a means to pursue those things. If you want that to be an option, because, look, let's say someone's breaking into your home, right? And your family's in your home. Violence then is an option, to protect your family, correct? So adults, free-thinking adults, have to ponder on violence as a means for a solution to certain problems sometimes. And to tell someone that that's immediately off the table, regardless of the situation, which is pretty much what kind of Black people have been told in this country forever, whether it was slavery or, girls being bombed in the church.
Yeah.
There's never been a thing where it's like, okay, well, violence is the answer or violence is acceptable, in that situation. And I think that's part of what he is trying to encourage us to think of, and not even just violence. Because like I said, I'm not saying that there's a military answer to what we have on, but
it's so interesting. The very fabric of this whole country, from every topic that we could talk about, when the origination of this country has been formed some form of violence. But when it comes to African Americans saying, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm about to take my machete, my gun, my this, or let's rally our troops. It's always told nonviolence. And it kind of plays into the whole Martin Luther King thing, because Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were around the same time. At one point, right before the assassination, they were talking and trying to get together. But at one time, they were very, very opposite, had the same goal and mission, wanting to help the fellow African American. But at the same time, you had a peaceful way. We're gonna love our neighbors because the Bible says to. We're gonna hug them. We're not going to engage in violence. You don't get nowhere, with being angry in this. But then you have Malcolm X saying, hey, listen here. We're going to go a whole nother route. By any means necessary, I'm going to get my respect and take what's mine and blah, 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 blah. And it's just interesting how you said, Cash, how it's always looked upon us a little bit differently when it comes to, for us, when we want to retaliate or just say, hey, we're angry, let's take to the streets. The same way they label Black Lives Matter a very violent. Now the stigma on BLM is just that it is a rowdy group. We're stealing, we're looting, we're over here setting police stations on fire.
They always have to write a narrative, right, that they need everyone to stick to. So if you make us out always to be the bad guy, regardless, then it keeps them exactly where they want to be. So it keeps us exactly where we want to be, where we want to be the ones to say, look, we're not the ones going over there shooting up this and doing this, we're over here minding our business. Again, that's the picture that they keep painted for everyone.
So the question I would give to both of y'all is, so we know what's good. We know that there's always a bad apple or somebody infiltrating our movements in every direction that we take. How do we stop the media, which controls the conservative and the liberal stations, from painting the picture that we are, because they do control the media? How do we change that image? This is 2021 and we're still looking at, how do we fix this? Does anybody have at least a pathway on how we change that?
I would answer your question with the same how. So here's my vision. So you have someone filming, a person of color walking down the street. The person of color walking down the street trips. But when they trip, they fall into a European older woman. She topples over. How do you stop the media from showing the piece where the person connected and then the European older woman actually stumbled and fell?
Yes.
That's their narrative. That's what they show. They want that combativeness. They want that controversy. They can't keep people in their place without it.
So, but here we go again. So it seems like when I speak to the different guests, such as you two or whoever, I'm speaking with, it seems like we have an answer. We know where the problem lies. So we just say, okay, the media, they have their own take on it, their own spin on it. This is what they're going to do. They want to control, blah, blah, blah. How do you beat that? How do you beat the powers that be? Because I guess that would fall into the same thing. Or, I mean, we can go deep with it and say, is that a part of the New World Order? And meaning that, just trying to beat that narrative. Go ahead, Cash.
I would say a lot of things aren't new. First, a lot of this stuff, people back in the civil rights, caught the same sort of hell. They were called the same sort of names. Speaking of MLK, the number one thing that they called him was divisive. According to them, had it not been for MLK coming into Alabama and coming into their towns, riling up their peaceful, happy Negroes, none of a lot of that stuff would have been going on. It was like, well, hold on, all this dog biting you're seeing on TV and stuff, it's this Martin Luther King guy. He's just bad business for the country, period. He means to drive a wedge in between us. He's putting children, out there in the marches on purpose, so they can get hurt and make us look bad. So a lot of these same things they said about, people in the past, even the abolitionists, right? When they were trying to end slavery, Frederick Douglass, and people like that, they said the same things. So, I think first of all, we have to realize that these are old tactics, and tactics are tactics. People are going to do what they're going to do, right? It's on you to do what it is that you're supposed to do every day, whether or not the other side is on their game or not, right? I don't know what the other side is going to do. I don't know how they're preparing, but what we're going to do is every day we're going to get up and we're going to do the things that we need to do, that we can control.
It's just it. I have to read this little clip real quick just to put it out there. Um, an armed security guard, 31, arrested at the Capitol checkpoint for carrying 500 ammo rounds and fake Biden inauguration credentials. Insists his ID was real. Says he was late for work and forgot to remove guns from his truck. Then it goes on to talk a little bit about the information on this guy. He was charged with possession of an unregistered firearm and unlawful possession of ammunition. He had tried to enter a security checkpoint in downtown DC with credentials which were allegedly false. But once again, he says, I just forgot it. I forgot what was going on. I don't know how they got in here. And once again, here's the double standard. If you, Cash, was to come in and say, had the same amount of ammo on you with fake credentials for inaugurations and everything, you'd probably be thrown underneath the jail. I don't think we would be here on the podcast.
I'm sure of it.
But once again, we create our own narrative. We can be their own leaders and pathways. How I'm still trying to get that answer, and maybe I'm not understanding. It seems like it's just a door that we just knock on and we're not going to get an answer to.
No, absolutely not. There are definitely things that we can do. I think a lot of the problems and stuff have been thoroughly laid out, but absolutely there are a lot of things that we can do. And first thing is, say the what happened at the Capitol, this guy with his 500 rounds. Again, this stuff is not new. This is a political tactic. This is a political strategy. There, this same group of people, since even before the Civil War, violence, roving mobs, lynch mobs, this has been a political strategy for them. This has been unfortunately, an effective political strategy for them. If everything else fails, we're gonna pick up the torches, and so that's them executing their strategy, right? That's their battle plan, and they're going out and they're executing their battle plan. And the onus is on us for us to begin executing ours. What I can say is that, one thing that's been happening this year is corporate America. Corporate America has been showing itself to be much more willing to push the envelope and to enact more progressive and radical changes than even the government has, right? And Black people, we have, not a lot of wealth or anything like that, but we have a lot of entertainers and athletes and stuff who have relationships with a lot of these corporations and everything. Athletes who, endorse McDonald's and Coca-Cola and Pepsi and, Nike and, many things. And I think, if we can go ahead and decide what it is that we want, we can begin presenting that to these, first of all, to these companies, right? Hey, this is what we need. First of all, our people need jobs. We need to put some money in the hands of Black people. So all you companies that, say you want to do the right thing and everything like that. I saw something where there were a few companies that had pledged to hiring, I think it was like astronomical number, like 500,000 or 1,000,000 Black people or something like that they were pledging to hire. That's something. Even these businesses, do a lot of contracting. They need, people to fulfill these things from cleaning their stores to, McDonald's getting its meat and stuff like that. I remember I work in the mortgage industry, and I remember working with a guy who he was showing his income, and he provided me with leases from McDonald's land leases where he owned the land and McDonald's had leased the land from him. They were paying him on these parcels or whatever $15,000 a month, 10-year leases.
Wait, what?
I don't know what McDonald's was doing with the land.
Wait a minute. Did you see that movie on
Like, huh?
about how McDonald's, the whole thing about McDonald's?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. He
Mhm.
was buying up the properties and then having them lease the actual, buildings and making money like that. But Cash, I love what you're saying about how these corporate companies are now like, going out and seeking more people of color and dot 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 dot. Here's where my issue lies. You get the people of color, the LGBTQ, all the isms, you get them in there, but then you still treat them, you still oppress them. It's still not equal in the workplace. So even though you're getting them in there, they're still not getting ahead. They're still not getting top dollar, and they're still being treated badly by some of these corporations. And again, I don't listen. I've been saying this from day one. I'm not asking them for nothing. I'm not going to these corporations and saying, hey, people of color, we need jobs. I'm not asking you. I'm not begging you. Once again, why are we still asking? And I do understand that people need to be employed, but maybe it's just my arrogance and I'm just fed up with the way the world is. But you know what I'm like?
No, look, so you have two options. You have two options, right? Because we are at where we are. The reality is what it is. When I talk about white America, owning and controlling 97%, like we are at where we are at, right? That's like, and I always liken it to a Monopoly game, right? You sit down, you play this Monopoly game. These people have cheated, taken the money out the bank, threw you in jail, and went around the boards 10 times and bought up everything, and now have said, okay, here's $200, you can get out of jail, and good luck, right?
Right.
And so you're saying, well, I guess to better put it, when I say two options, so either you're going to try to play the game and catch up, or you're just going to flip the board over and say, I'm not playing.
I think Ty's at that point. I think Ty's at that point. She's about to flip a board over.
Listen, that's where I'm at. Screw you. But you want to know what also, like, to touch base about what you were saying before, Cash, about the celebrities and stuff like that. So Twitter, because I've been, doing some Twitter research, and I screenshot Kia. I didn't write it down. I screenshot, but some of the places that pretty much has been cutting ties with Trump has been Verizon, Walmart, Snapchat, Disney, Amazon, YouTube, AT&T, Stripe, Twitch, Best Buy. So again, like when you're American Express, Facebook, Twitter, Google, Comcast, MasterCard. So again, I mean, these corporations are recognizing that what he did, he shouldn't have done. However, here's the flip side. I like to play
I was about to say something about that. I think you are.
So are you doing it because you feel in your heart as a corporation that that's the right thing to do? Or are you doing it because you already know that if you don't go to the other side, you're going to lose money, you're going to lose supporters?
I was going to say in a business model, if we're just talking about business, there is no sides. We're just looking at the bottom dollar, and at the end of the day, it's like, hey, I know that if I don't choose a side, the right side, I may lose more of my fan base, especially when they look at the demographics. We have this age group that uses, I don't know, Snapchat more often than this group. And we don't want them to be in an uproar. So we'll kind of accommodate, just like you see the BMS, Black Lives Matter, you have the different logos mixed in with the brands that we know. And this wasn't happening. We always knew about police brutality, but because, I think the LeBron James and the big ones, and these are the gatekeepers of the Bucks, and so that's how they're sitting there like, hey, you know what I'm saying? You better choose a side. But what I was going to ask you, but you didn't mention, Ty, was I heard in the same scenario that some of these same companies are stopping their money flow with the other side as well. So yeah, we're not messing with Trump and what he's doing. We're going to stop that, but we're not going to mess with the Democrats neither.
Right.
And I heard some Democrats on the news say, well, wait a second, this is not right. What did we do to get the money flow stopping our way? And that's crazy, because you can literally sit back and say, wow, these are the companies that are controlling these politicians. Like, wow. So why do we even have politicians if the companies got the final say anyway?
It's that money.
This is a capitalist society, and a capitalist society, the private businesses, and as you see, it's funny because, to hear Republicans talk about monopolies and stuff, when they have been the ones to really tear down all of the laws and everything. When they talk about regulation, let's be clear. When they talk about, this frivolous regulation, all these regulations we have, a lot of those regulations are the rules of the road. It's to stop companies from growing and being too large and creating monopolies and things like that. And they were all too happy to do it when they always felt like these companies would just, stay in line and go along with what it is that they wanted and do what they wanted. And then now they're, seeing and realizing how large these companies have gotten. And, these companies in a lot of instances are larger than countries.
Yeah.
And you have no way to put them under check. You have nothing to threaten against them or whatever, really. Especially as just one party, one half of the spectrum. There's nothing you can do with these people, and they're out of sorts. They're not used to not being the ones completely in control. But no, I don't subscribe to these companies any sort of altruism or whatever. I don't think they it's from a conscious standpoint. Neither do I care though, right? When I'm getting the response that I want, the response that I need, I shouldn't be sitting there over analyzing exactly what it is that made this person move.
So we established from the beginning of our conversation all the way to the end of the conversation that yes, it's the big money that's moving things, and yes, we are on the bottom totem pole. We established these different things. And if we can get awareness and bring awareness to where that money is, and then we can have some way with it. So when you think about what's happening now, you have the Black Lives Matter, and you have take the NBA. The NBA is a $1 billion company, whatever the case may be. And then now they're making things national. They're putting it on the forefront about how police brutality needs to be, awareness and blah, blah, blah. Do you think that, or how do we collectively get our people on the same sheet of music so that we can make those moves where we are getting businesses to look our way in reference to the political things that we want to achieve in this world? For instance, BET came out with some type of Black News Network or something. That thing is a joke. Like, y'all wasted y'all time. Shit, y'all could have hired my teenage daughter to do it, and talk about what's going on. I mean, but at the end of the day, we want to have our own platform right there on channel, 7, the prime time news. I mean, how do we get big businesses to look our way? How do we collectively get everybody on the same sheet of music? When you made the statement, Ty, about, okay, we get in there, we got these businesses, but they're still not paying us the same wages, and they're still not doing this. And so I'm having a background in HR. I definitely know that HR is a big, big gatekeeper. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to pay this one over here a little bit more because she's starting out with her family and she's so sweet. But, she's okay. She'll start off, she got to work hard for what she got to do. You're like, wait a second. Both of them have the same level of education, but you would put her with a higher salary. And then for you would have to put that struggle in because you just like the struggle. I mean, how do we get everybody on the same sheet of music to stop those gatekeepers so that we can move money?
Well, okay, so human resource gatekeepers, right? But human resource still has to report to someone else. So human resource is still not the end all be all. So, right? Because there's always someone else to report to outside.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So my thought is, here's my thought. You can't change people's minds, right?
Mhm.
I can't make you think what I want you to think. However, I can, as the higher being, the actual gatekeeper,
Mhm.
I can make sure that whatever policies and procedures that are put in place, I can make sure that you abide by those,
Mhm.
right? I can't, I don't know how human resources thinks,
Mhm.
an individual. I don't know how all my managers think, what their religion is, their ideologies, dot, 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 dot.
Mhm.
I'm only hoping as the gatekeeper that they operate the same way that I would operate as the one that runs or owns this business or corporation.
Mhm.
So for me, I think it really, really starts at the top. And I notice we keep bypassing that. We
Mhm.
keep bypassing the top because we think that the people in the middle are the ones that are actually controlling it, because those are the ones that are the face of it. They're only supposed to be the face, but we
Got it.
still need someone to push that policy that we're supposed to work by.
So my last question for right now. I'll probably have something else to say, like I always do.
Yeah.
But my question for you, Cash, for right now is right now Biden will be sworn in and his cabinet of workers will be in, and they would probably, I guess, be the gatekeepers, the true gates, and they're going to implement policies about housing and this and this and all types of scenarios. And when you look at his cabinet and his staff, they are a rainbow of people, women and men and black and white and LGBT and QRST and 1, 2, 3. I mean, you got it. They're there. You know what I'm saying? So when my little girl looks up, she's like, wow, this is the representation of America, Asian and black and white, just all of it, right? But then again, sometimes I hear like, you know what, just because the color has this like, hey, they're for us, are they really for us, or is that just a show? Because you mentioned some things about the policies, both of you did. I know Ice Cube, which I'm still a fan of, had came in with a policy. He came in with a policy and was like, okay, I'm willing to give this policy to whoever would listen. Because he wanted to give his policy to the Trump administration, a lot of people bashed him, like, how dare you even talk to this man? I personally felt that our agenda is so real. We need to give the agenda to anybody who would listen, regardless of who it was. But people got upset with Ice Cube. Do you think that in regards to Biden's cabinet / staff and the ideologies that Ice Cube has, do you feel like this could possibly be a good change? Like this can go somewhere, because we got this powerhouse now, maybe?
Well, I would say it like this, Biden and his staff, his administration definitely is less conservative than Trump and his administration, right? But by no means do I, believe that these people are progressives or, are really into the sort of transformative government that Black people need. Um, I understand he has a myriad of different faces or whatever, a whole entire crayon box. But, if they all, and if you think about it, right, if you go back to George Bush, right? George Bush, he had Condoleezza Rice, he had,
On it right now.
Black people all over the place. Conservative Black people, so
Yeah.
if everybody's thinking the same and on the same wave and doing the same policies, anyway, if there's no diversity in thought. Right now in the Democratic Party, there's a pretty big rift between the progressive wing of the party
Yep.
and the moderate / conservative wing of the party.
Yep.
Really?
And
Sure is.
Really?
Oh yeah, they about to fight.
what's and it's been kind of fighting for a while, and Bernie Sanders being, for lack of
Yeah,
anyone else,
right.
being the leader of the progressive wing of the Democrat Party, and Obama, Clinton, Biden, that being the more centrist
Conservative.
conservative wing. And surprisingly, Black America has gotten behind that moderate conservative wing, to a tune of like 80%, and so
Right. And
yeah,
Oh,
like we're like, we don't want change. We don't we're not, we don't, universal health care. Who wants that? Like,
right.
so, and I think part of that is that we're used to, when you talk about the, bringing it full circle to the plantation capitalism, to that top down sort of thing, and how it trickles from that owner to that overseer to that leader of the Black people, right? They tend to elevate one and then tell that one, this is how it's pretty much going to go. And a lot of times that one has maybe been the preacher or whatever. And they will turn around to the rest of us and they will say, hey, this is what's best for us or whatever. This is where we're going to go or whatever. And, out of our respect and deference for that individual, we go ahead and move forward with no calculus, or not enough calculus, in my opinion, on actual strategy. So if you say in this situation, bringing it back to Biden and everything, where you have Clyburn in South Carolina, when Biden's candidacy was on a death knell, when he come out and tell Black people in South Carolina to come out and vote for Biden, and they come out in droves and
crazy. That is crazy.
they saved his nomination. There was no real political calculus on why they should do that. There was no,
But and I'm not asking a question, but the statement. But that's the terrible thing. I think that we as African Americans, we have our own riff. I think because you have the woke, individuals, and then you have that Black conservative. The majority of Black conservatives that listen to Clyburn, they were that old time, give me that good old church, folk. And, you listen to what the pastor says, you listen to what the first lady says,
Yep.
And it's been embedded, the African-American church, the AME has been embedded into our backbone of the African-American community. And when you said they elevate one and the other, it made me write down how they elevated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And they talked so bad about Malcolm X. Both of them had very, very similar ideologies in reference to, having, healthcare and this and, getting the Black woman together and the Black man and blah, 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 but two different ways. And I think because of the fact that white supremacy is so prevalent and they don't want it to move, they say, you know what? Well, we want to kind of quiet the noise a little bit. He's a little softer spoken. He's a little tender. Let's point him up. There should be a monument right next to Martin Luther King Jr., I feel, that honors Malcolm X. Malcolm X has woken so many people. It's unreal. He's done so many things for the African American community, but you never show as much love. We don't have a national holiday for him, but we have one for Malcolm X. When you hear about Malcolm X, you only hear about that I Have a Dream speech. You don't hear about all the other things. And I think that's when they wanted an attempted assassination, which they actually came through with, is when Malcolm X and Martin Luther King started having conversations together. And you would see them having these little meetings and these things, because you know what? When we collectively get together, we are forced to be reckoned with. And I think that the more docile we get, the more you kind of maybe pay the pastor a little bit of money to tell their congregation to do ABC 1, 2, 3, we kind of go along with it. So you either have some Black folks that just don't care. I unfortunately, as much as I love them, I'll run into people that I care for, but they don't do politics at all. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't do politics? Go ahead.
Can I just give a quick shout out to Elephant Man Podcast
Sure, sure, sure.
Network, Stacks, Earl K, Denise, James Carl, Annie, and Liz, and Mark Logan. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. Again, don't forget to share, like, subscribe. Sorry, just wanted to give a
No. And we could also touch upon
in the room.
We could also touch upon their comments too. So James says that's rich people talk. Gates thinks that helping Africans first may be doing them a solid, but let's test white Americans first and test that theory.
Yep.
We have Annie says without a vision, the people fail. Yeah, unfortunately. Liz Carter, they can pledge to hire, which is cool, but I'd be more interested in them pledging toward education. We don't need more representation at the floor. We need representation at the corporate level. Also, be careful thinking that these companies have our community's interests at heart, because they are quick to throw a BLM banner on their website. McDonald's, ABC Liquor, Popeyes, Capital.
Really true.
These corporations are driving forces in our health, financial, and social well-being, or lack thereof. Very, very true.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that, as far as those corporations, if you think about how like Greyhound was around, back in segregation, when they was talking about the Freedom Riders or whatever and segregating the buses, like that was the bus, the Greyhound, Greyhound. They were fine until it wasn't fine, right? And that's usually how it goes, So I think a lot of the answer to our questions is being able to compel people. And how do we compel white America as a majority in this country to, recognize our full citizenship, and to make us whole. MLK has a book, called Chaos and Community. Where do we go from here? And it's funny, I really just learned about this book in my adulthood, in the last few years, that he can have a national holiday and we don't read his work. Like, I was like, really? Like, Martin Luther King has books that he wrote himself, like his words. Yes, Martin Luther King has books he wrote himself, his words, that we do not read in any of our schools or anything, because it is very liberal. It is very much about reparations for Black people. Is a that particular book is a big condemnation on white liberals, and after his summation was basically they were unwilling to see the violence. They were all for helping him stop the violence, but when it came to going that step further, to sharing more wealth and power, to actual putting in real policies for change, he lost all of them.
What was the name of the book again for the people out there?
Where do we go from here? Chaos or Community?
Thank you for that.
Crazy.
Just to wrap it up, thank you guys for tuning in and listening. Thank you for just having a conversation like we always do. Once again, like I said, this wasn't an episode that I really promoted or anything, just because it's a lot of stuff about to go down. The National Guard has been activated. I actually know families who their children are being activated. And it's not just the National Guard, it's actual active duty members as well. It's not just the Army, it's other branches as well. I want those families to stay safe. Domestic terrorism is real. It has been here before Timothy McVeigh. We all know about foreign terrorism, but in our backyard, we had different things happening and we just kind of put a blindfold over our eyes, but it's real. Stay safe, family. Wednesday's around the corner. People in all the different capitals, they say they're expecting different things to take place. I like to let everybody know, just to be able to prepare. know somebody that knows somebody to get on somebody else's page to find out what they planning. Like, oh, you gonna meet over here? Because I definitely need to know the 411. But thank you for tuning in. Stay safe. Ty, do you have anything?
No, just thank you once again. We love you guys. Cash, you already know what it is. Yeah.
Always glad to stop by. Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys.
Bye, guys. Love
Bye.
you.
Love you.
Bye.